Good afternoon, folks. I'm out here in the backyard at home, and I got my homemade tractor out. I did a video on this tractor, I don't know if it was 2 or 3 years ago. I'll put a link to that video in the description. Sorry about the noise of the mowing in the background. I live across the road from the cemetery, and they're mowing the cemetery, and it's loud. But I believe there's going to be more rain coming in. That's been the story of our life this summer. I believe there's going to be more coming in a couple hours, so I need to get this video made now. Anywho, after I made the last video of this tractor, I had a few people asking questions about some of the components that I used to make this tractor, so I figured that I would do a little update video. And then I've got our two big trailers that we use for hauling everything down to old threshers. I'm going to use this to pull both of them out here in the middle of the open so that I can get the air hose out here, air up the tires, clean them off. One of them's full of brush that needs to be towed down to the little brush dump station in town. So anyhow, I got a bag over the magneto because I'm going to give this poor thing a bath. It's been sitting in the shed since old threshers last year. The engine on this is a 1945 3 horsepower Fairbanks Morse, and a lot of the people that see that say, well, 3 horsepower, that obviously can't do very much, but it does pretty good. It's geared low, the tractor's geared low, top speed's about 4.5 miles an hour, and in low gear it will spin those steel wheels and dig right into the ground. I guess we'll just start with the basics on it, since I've had a lot of people ask about it. The rear wheels and the frame rails that go down here, and the front wheels and the front axle all came from a New Idea manure spreader. After I bought this and built it and started taking it to shows, a lot of people said, oh, you've got Model T frame rails there. And I kept saying, no, they're off of a New Idea manure spreader. And some people said, no, those are Model T frame rails. Well, eventually I had an old boy tell me that when Ford switched from Model T to the Model A, they sold their leftover frame rails, and a lot of them went to New Idea and got used making New Idea manure spreaders. So the rear wheels, the front axle are all off of that New Idea manure spreader, but the frame rails, even though they were on that New Idea manure spreader, are Model T Ford frame rails. They obviously were straight. I cut them, bent them, slung them down so that the bottom frame rails would go lower. I did not have more Model T Ford frame rails at the time, so I used just channel iron to make my top frame rails. Had I known that those were Model T Ford frame rails and how they're pretty readily available, you can find them fairly easily still, I probably would have found Model T Ford frame rails to make the top frame rails too, but didn't know at the time, do now. You got the motor here. Motor drives down to this gearbox. It's a very simple drive. Pull the lever back, belt tensioner goes forward. The lever has a detent, so it just goes past center, locks in place. That was the simplest way that I could design a clutch to run this tractor. It drives from the engine down to this gearbox, and a lot of people have asked me what that gearbox is off of. Well, that gearbox, you see the orange paint on part of it, that is from an Alice Chalmers pull behind combine. My uncle had that in his scrap pile, gave it to me. I drive it. Let's come back from this side. I'm actually driving it in through the output shaft and out to the transmission through the input shaft. So I didn't know for sure how that would work. I just put it together and tried it, and it has worked okay, except for that gearbox has an in and out of gear. It's this rod that comes up right here, and I've got a lever here to control it, but it wanted to jump out of gear. That's why that wire that you can obviously see has not been taken off of there in years is on there, because for some reason driving it in the output and out the input, must be some way that the gears are cut or something. It wanted to jump to neutral all the time, so just wired that handle forward, left it. It's never been an issue, and there's no reason that I ever need to shift that to neutral. The transmission that's on here, when I got it, I was told was a, I believe, I'd have to look again. I believe they told me it was a 1940 Chevy transmission. I don't know what it's out of for sure, but it was in a old boy's scrap pile. He said you can have it, and it was free. Like, I mean, it was free. He gave it to me, but it was free. It wasn't stuck. Put it in there, made it work, and it's been in there. I built this tractor in 2004. It was the first summer that it was operational. I think I started on it the weekend between Christmas and New Year's in 2003. I put a brake rotor on there because I was gonna put brakes on it there, and I never got that far. It's only been like 21 years. I might get around to it someday. But I basically was gonna make like a hand brake, a parking brake, so that you could, if you had to, you could use it to slow down. But typically you don't really need brakes on this to get slowed down. If you drive it smartly, and you're not, like if you're going down a hill, you might have to shift down to a lower gear to slow down. And I've never had the need for them necessarily, so I've never got back to that. The rear end is out of a 1947 Jeep truck that my dad had back in the 80s, and he took that Jeep truck off the original frame and put it on a Blazer four-wheel drive frame, and with the Blazer's V8 engine and everything. And when he scrapped out the rest of the drivetrain, my uncle saved that rear end, and then 80s, 90s, 2000, 20 years later, when I needed a rear end, he said, I've got that Jeep rear end. It's a really low gear. I believe it's like 585 rear end gears. So I got that from him, and you can see here and here where I cut that rear axle and I narrowed it. I took about 20 inches out of it to make it the width that I wanted, but I took, like, I believe it was on this side, I took 13 inches out of this side, 7 inches out of that side. I'm not positive, but the rear end gear sat off to one side or the other on that Jeep truck, and I kind of centered it back up. That way the pumpkin of the rear end can be underneath the seat there. The seat is, I bought it down at Old Threshers in the swap tent, I think. Western L Roller Company, Hastings, Nebraska. I looked that up, and that's Western Land Roller Company, and they made like steamrollers and stuff. So that's the seat that I threw on there. The steering wheel, I believe, is an old gate valve wheel. I don't even remember where I bought that. I kind of feel like maybe I bought it off of eBay back then. Was eBay even a thing in 2003? I believe it was, yeah. The steering shaft just runs down here right over top of the motor. I did drill holes in the top of the water hopper of that engine to bolt this bracket on there, and that was probably the most painful thing I did on this whole thing, because that's a 1945 engine, so it was a pretty low production because it was a wartime engine. Maybe it's 43. I believe that was a 1943 engine. I'll have to look up the serial number again. But I know it was a wartime engine and their production numbers were way down. So I hated to drill a hole in that hopper, but I eventually broke down and did it. The newest part on this whole thing is this steering knuckle here. My Uncle Bob got that from the place he worked, and it was off of a Cadillac, and it was a knuckle on the steering on a Cadillac car from the late 90s, early 2000s. I can't remember exactly what, but it got replaced along with some other parts, and it was in their scrap bin there, and he grabbed it because it would work perfect for what I needed here. The steering gear is a Willys Jeep steering gear. I don't know what year for sure, but it was a Jeep that we had out at my dad's shop, and we ended up scrapping and saving a bunch of parts off of it, and we had that there. So that's what I used for my steering gear. She's pretty greasy. I haven't gave it a good thorough cleaning in a couple years now. So I believe I'm going to drag the hose back here. That's why I got the magneto covered up. The spark plug wire, I don't know if you can see through the plastic and see it in there, but it's got a big hole in the casing on the wire. And before anyone tells me, I know that's a super easy thing to fix, but that's pretty far down my list of projects. As long as it keeps on working, I just keep on using it. So I'm gonna drag the hose out here. I'm gonna get some I got some easy off oven cleaner. I'm gonna spray down all these really greasy areas with that, let it soak for a few minutes, and drag the hose out here and give this thing a bath. And then I'm gonna hook up to both of our trailers and just drag them out here in the open where I can get the tires aired up and get ready to get all the brush off of the one that I've got piled up with tree limbs and stuff. Okay, all this stuff is thoroughly greasy. I'm just going to soak down with some oven cleaner that's been in the cabinet out in my garage for like 5 years. Ought to work really, really good. Soak it down and give it a few minutes to soak on there. Let's try this one. That's slightly better. Alright, I keep seeing videos of people doing it, so I figured I'd give it a try. I just put a whole bunch of Dawn dish soap in the other end of this hose where it connects onto the hose bib up there. So let's see if we get any suds coming out this end and how long they last. It's got 100 foot of hose to come through, so it might take a minute before we start seeing them here. I am not seeing any suds, but oh, wait a second, there we go. By God. We're getting some suds out of here. Well, they sure didn't seem like they lasted very long. I did see some studs for them, but they lasted. I put probably several ounces of Dawn dish soap in there, and I got suds for about 20 seconds, if even that. So I would say, if you've ever wondered about that, it's probably not worth giving it a try. Okay, the old Fairbanks tractor is cleaner than it was. It's not perfect, but it doesn't need to be perfect. Got a lot of the grease and mud and dust and pine needles all blasted off of it. Now I'll let it sit there and dry for a little bit, and then we'll see if we can get these two trailers pulled out here in the open where I can easily get at them and air up the tires. Get them ready to start hauling stuff down to Midwest Old Threshers, Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Okay, it's had a while to sit out here and dry. There's still some water on the seat, but my jeans will soak that up. Let's get this. Get the baggie off the magneto, and let's see if everything stayed dry enough that this old girl will start up again now. Ooh. I have to re-grease up the end of my crankshaft there. I like to keep it greased so that the crank doesn't get stuck on it. That's just about how this thing usually starts. It doesn't matter if it's been sitting for 5 minutes or 5 months. Usually pops right off just like that. I do have a muffler that I could thread on there, but I didn't put it on there today. I think it'll be okay without it. Okay, I'm going to get hitched up to a trailer here and try to drag it out in the open. We got both of our trailers parked over here. This one's full of brush. It needs to go down to the city brush dump place. But I'm going to get them both pulled out in the open where I can get the tires aired up and start getting them ready to go. We got today's Wednesday. We're probably going to take a load of stuff down Friday, another load of stuff down Saturday, and then more stuff down Monday or Tuesday. Well, I can tell you one thing, there's wasps somewhere in the front end of that trailer. I don't know if they're in the toolbox or if they're up underneath the trailer somewhere, but one got me on my hand and one got me on my arm. And they are none too happy, that's for sure. So I'm going to have to find out where they're at and deal with them, because I don't want to be getting stung while I'm trying to drag that trailer around. Okay, well, I didn't find where their nest was, but the good old brake parts cleaner just sent about a half a dozen of them to meet their makers. I don't see any more flying around, so I think I'm going to be brave enough to try to pull this trailer out again. Fingers crossed, don't get stung anymore. I know this is going to be loud, but I'm going to put the camera right up here on the front of the tractor. Didn't work too hard pulling that. Like I said, I kept it in first gear. It's pretty low geared in first gear. I've got the trailer out where I can get all the tires aired up good. Now I'm going to unhitch this here, and we'll have to go get old Carl to pull this trailer down and unload all the brush off of it this afternoon. Then I'll get the other trailer out and I'll pull it up kind of behind this one so I can reach both of them to get the tires aired up, make sure they're good. I'll jack them up, spin the wheels, make sure the bearings sound good, all that kind of stuff before we start hauling stuff to Mount Pleasant. I just found where they're coming from, right down in there. Right down in the tongue of the trailer. That's where they were flying up out of there and getting me. I was spinning the crank handle right here, 10 inches away from where they were flying out of the hole. Well, I'm pretty sure they're all dead now. Now my paint's going to peel on the tongue of the trailer because it's just cheap spray paint. Okay, I'm not going to hook this up to the other trailer and pull it out because I think I'm just going to go get old Carl and hook onto that trailer and load up my Model A truck, and then I can unhook that trailer and hook back onto the one we just moved so that I can take it tomorrow when Hank's home to help me and unload all the tree limbs and stuff that are on it. And then we can get this homemade tractor loaded up. So I'm gonna park this back in the shed for now, and then tomorrow I'll get the camera back out when I'm getting this thing loaded on the trailer and ready to haul down to Midwest Old Threshers. Well folks, the Fairbanks tractor is parked in its display spot down here at Old Threshers. I said I was gonna record hauling it down here, but I got busy and I forgot to record when we were coming down here, and I thought I was gonna get another part recorded of it down here before the show started, and never got to that, and I need to get this video wrapped up before I come down here. So if you want to see some more of it, watch next week's video when it comes out. It'll be a video of Midwest Old Threshers, and it should have some footage of this running and driving around the show down here. Thanks for watching, folks. As always, please hit the like and subscribe button, leave a comment, share the video if you know someone who might enjoy this video. Come on back next week. We'll have a video of something here for you to watch. Thanks again for watching, folks.